Greetings! I'm the Game Overthinker. I'm here to bring you commentary about the world of video games in a manner that is more dignified and thoughtful than the profanity-laden myopia that so usually characterizes the gaming commentary video genre. Today, this stimulating supposition. Nostalgia. When the fuck did that become a bad thing? So Koji Igarashi, the game designer formerly of Konami and probably the person most associated with the Castlevania series and its Metroidvania phase from Symphony of the Night onward, put up a Kickstarter for an independent spiritual successor to that very formula called BLOODSTAINED Ritual of the Night, angling that even though AAA publishers don't seem to think side-scrolling exploration platformers are worth the effort anymore, that plenty of gaming fans might feel differently. And he was right, the project was funded and then some in under 6 hours. This mirrors the similar enthusiasm that's greeted similar in all but name revivals like Kaiji Infune's Mighty No. 9 and Yooka-Laylee from a grab bag of former Banjo-Kazooie creators. Now, I wasn't actually surprised that some people had a problem with this, but I expected it to come from a different place than it ended up coming from. See, unlike most Kickstarters, the Bloodstained campaign didn't even pretend that they were trying to fund the full production of the game. Instead, they were hoping to effectively use Kickstarter as proof of their product's viability when looking to venture capitalists for potential investment. The basic idea being, see, we didn't just take a poll of whether people wanted our game, we attached monetary value to the poll so the votes actually mean something. And I can see people being kind of cheesed off, like maybe that this goes against the spirit of the crowdfunding ideal, but as it turns out, that's not what people had a problem with. See, with developers of classic games leaving their corporate masters and striking out on their own to develop independent successors to the games they're best known for becoming a more and more common phenomenon, some voices in the games culture decided it was high time to start calling this out. And no, I'm not looking to drop any names, because this thing where people in gaming disagree and then the less popular opinion gets dogpiled on social media sucks, and I don't want to be part of it unless the offending party, deserves to get dogpiled. Suffice it to say, while the massive outpouring of both financial and verbal support clearly demonstrates that there is a market for these products, more than a few folks feel that established figures producing new versions of what they're already established for is going against the creative ideal of crowdfunding, i.e. giving fresh new voices with new ideas a chance to get over. And I guess I can see their point. I mean, what kind of schmendrick strikes out on his own only to end up making another version of the same basic thing he already made once before? My take, honestly, given how big the retro throwback scene is right now, can you really blame them? If the guys who did Axiom Verge can make money off of a game that's basically Metroid, why can't the guy who actually made Castlevania make money off a game that's basically Castlevania? But, some might say, that's just the bigger scope version of the same problem. Why do we need to revive and rehash these old games? Everyone complains about the mainstream games industry repeating itself and standing in place, but isn't catering to the desires of nostalgic fans to relive their favorites on and on into infinity the primordial patient zero of that whole outlook? Are we not stifling the growth of the medium by encouraging this, or at least learning that some of our supposed visionaries aren't as creatively vibrant as we thought? Yeah, and what about Scarecrow's brain? A lot of that is valid, and there's plenty to unpack there, but the main thing that sticks out to me is trying to draw some kind of equivalence between the longevity and tradition in the retro scene and the laziness of present-day AAA's philosophy of game design by Xerox. That one really burns my ass as a student of gaming history because it tends to get deployed by smug assholes as a catch-all defense of the continued de-evolution of the medium relative to its potential. You complain about modern franchises not undergoing any meaningful evolution, but Mario has been fighting the same guy for 3 decades. Yeah, he has. Also found time to do all this shit, too. I mean, do I have to demonstrate again how gaming in the so-called Golden Age was so open to risk and creative retooling that Super Mario Bros. And Zelda and Castlevania and Donkey Kong and even fucking Splatterhouse went with a near-total overhaul of their design for their first sequels, that Final Fight started out as a sequel to the first Street Fighter before they decided on Street Fighter 2, that if Mike Tyson hadn't gone to jail, the direct sequel to Punch-Out would have had you play as the end boss from the first game in boxing matches against aliens? I'm sorry, but there's just no comparison between games that invented whole genres and have undergone decades of radical permutations, releasing the equivalent of a greatest hits album as they approach middle age, and Medal of Duty, Moderate Advanced Fighter 3, Black Oops, same game as the last 3, but maybe this time you'll shoot a different shade of brown person. Remember when Call of Duty's big new value-added feature was you got to have a dog, and it was like the 7th non-World War II game? Shit, Mega Man got a dog in like game number 3. In all seriousness, though, the question of whether or not nostalgia for the classics and the ability to continue indulging in it is healthy for the progression of the medium is a valid one. Under different circumstances than the ones we have, I might even be inclined to agree with the supposition that no, it's not healthy. But we can only approach the world as it is, and the world of games being what it is right now, not only do I not think that the affectation of retro aesthetics in the indie scene or the unending revival of classic franchises, styles, and design formats are unhealthy, I'd say they're among the healthiest trends going. I'll give you a minute to get over the shock of me coming down on the side of nostalgia. Here's the thing, gaming up to recently has been different from almost every other artistic, creative, or storytelling medium in one key respect. When it came to, say, paintings, stylistic trends like surrealism, modernism, cubism, or content trends like the Pietà were allowed to pass in and out of popularity in organic, natural lifespans. They arrived, they got popular, and they receded based strictly on the appetite of the audience to keep seeing them and the desire of the artist to keep painting them. Similar trends in books, music, sculpture, and architecture, same story. Video games, though? Totally different story, especially on the artist side. By and large, in video games, it hasn't mattered if designers and game artists feel that they've reached the limit of what can be done in a particular genre, with a particular hardware, or through a particular art style. Whenever the next technological generation, usually meaning new graphics, arrived, that was it. When 3D polygons hit the scene, it didn't matter if you still thought tremendous artistic possibilities were there to be explored within the unique visual aesthetic of pixel art. Those days were over, pal. Think about how stifling that would be in any other art form. Hey, throw out all those paints and brushes, we've got cameras now. In my view, the rise of the retro scene allows us to finally correct that egregious injustice against the medium as an art form. With supposedly obsolete styles like pixel art, low poly, and even text adventure given a new lease on life, we can finally see how these techniques can really be pushed, and that can only be a positive thing for gaming as a whole. And sure, it would be nice if when old school pros like Igarashi or Inafune went indie, it turned out that there was some totally different new thing they'd always wanted to make, but bottom-up originality isn't the only way for veterans to be creative. There's also refinement, going back over a work again and again to attain new levels of higher perfection. Finally, I know it may sound simple, logical, maybe even a little profound to ask, why do we need retro games and revival games when we've already still got all the great old games that they're referencing? But the problem is, we really don't have all those great old games. I've railed against this bullshit before, but the lack of anything approaching a universal easy access system for archiving and studying classic games is one of the most shameful disgraces in this already pretty fucking disgraceful industry. If a print of a movie or a copy of a book survives somewhere, I can watch or read the thing without too much difficulty. But video games, even with virtual consoles and collections and Steam and good old games and all the other outlets for accessing the classics, and assuming you don't have all the original functioning hardware and software in working order with proper hookups and a correct resolution TV, how many can you really get? How much of the collective arcade, Coleco, Intellivision, Spectrum, Atari, Famicom, Amiga, Commodore, NES, Master System, Game Boy, Game Gear, Genesis, Super NES, TurboGrafx, Neo Geo, Saturn, Dreamcast, 3DO, CDI, DS, Virtual Boy, Original Xbox, PlayStation 1 and 2 canon can you actually get at, study, or just play? 10%? 15? 25? Maybe? We have let the foundational bedrock of this vibrant, powerful, creative medium wither on the vine and scatter to the four winds. The carelessness of it boggles the mind! Think about this. If Konami went under tomorrow, and Konami is a pretty shithole company right now, so that's not outside the realm of possibility, what happens to the Castlevania canon then, huh? Until we have a proper universal archive, a Gutenberg project, or at least a Netflix for gaming, neo-retros, revivals, and spiritual successors are the best way we have of preserving whole swaths of vital, priceless gaming history into the future. Why would we ever want to discourage their proliferation? It's not just about aging Nintendo generation gamers like me wanting to scratch a nostalgia itch, folks. It's about the transcendent value of history. Or are you okay with a near future where video games are primarily coming from designers whose knowledge of their own medium doesn't go back any further than modern warfare? The third one.